And voila, the perfect Manhattan. If you are as mad about Manhattans as I am, you tend to be a little picky when you go to a restaurant, and you know immediately when you pick up your Manhattan if it's too much bitters. You can almost smell the aromatic value of bitters, that it's overdone. Or better yet, maybe it looks really light, like they didn't pour enough bourbon into that Manhattan, you know, or my gosh, what about the cherry? What type of cherry? You know, so we do all these things when we fall in love with Manhattan. So I'm just gonna teach you a basic Manhattan that I enjoy and my good friend Susan Rigler taught me, and it's made with vermouth, and you just can't go wrong. You can make them just two, one, you can make a batch for a crowd, you know, whatever you like, but it is so easy. But I have to say, the very first thing is the basics. I start with the glassware. And if you notice, I kept these in the freezer just for about 5 minutes or so to chill the outside. And I have to say, when I'm at a restaurant and they look at the glass and I'm halfway finished with my Manhattan and they bring me a nice, fresh, frosted glass just to pour the rest of it in, that's like nirvana for me. So you can keep them in the fridge, or another bartending trick is just simply put some crushed ice in some water and let it sit for a little bit, and then you can dump it out right before you make your Manhattan. Easy enough. Now, when you choose your bourbon, right now, usually the recipe is about 3 ounces of bourbon. I'm going to use 6 today because I'm making 2 Manhattans, but I don't like to use anything that's over 100 proof. Manhattans can certainly pack a punch, and especially if your guests are over, you don't want it overdone. And you want them to be able to sip all night and not be knocked out after a couple. So I just pour in this cup a little bit, about 6 ounces, and then the next thing that's very important is the vermouth. Now, vermouth is simply, if you're not familiar with it, is fortified wine, and it's made with botanicals. And so what you might want to do with your vermouth, and I strongly encourage it, is when you actually open the bottle, make sure you refrigerate it afterwards just to keep it very fresh, because it is a fortified wine. And you're gonna pour about 1 ounce to 2 ounces of vermouth, and you can just smell some of the aromatics, which is lovely. And then of course, bitters. Now, bitters is always like adding salt to the soup, as I've told you all before. But at the same time, you can choose which flavor bitters you like. Now, I tend to like orange bitters with a Manhattan, but today I'm just gonna use regular bitters that are very savory. This is by the Bitter Housewife. It's a female-owned business, and I always like to support that. So just a couple dashes of bitters. And then really let it stir with some crushed ice or regular cube ice. Now the crushed ice is gonna melt very quickly if you use that, so that's why I always like to use cube. And as you're stirring, make sure that you keep it rolling because you wanna chill it as well. And that's why I stir for quite a little bit, just to see a little bit of that ice melt. Then you want to pour in your fresh glass that's already pre-chilled, because keeping a great Manhattan chilled, I think, makes such a difference. And then you all know I'm geeks for vintage. And I found the most beautiful vintage set, and we talked about the glassware. So this one is served what's called up in a Manhattan glass. However, some people just like it short or neat. And so I found these beautiful vintage glasses, but this turned me on. This is why I bought it. So it is a cherry holder, an old-fashioned cherry holder, and it already had the pick, so you didn't have to dig that spoon in to get it. And we top that Manhattan with a beautiful cherry, and voila, the perfect Manhattan.